Hi students, last time we saw this lesson, The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was an Irish poet and playwright. After writing in different forms throughout the 1880s, Oscar Wilde became one of London's most popular playwrights in the early 1890s. The theme of this lesson, The Happy Prince, is a wonderful allegory that is packed with valuable themes such as social injustice, judging a book by its own cover, the disparity between the poor and the wealthy. Disparity means indifference between the poor and the rich, loss of innocence, sacrifice, love, empathy, and compassion. It is packed with a lot of themes. First of all, you should know what is an allegory. Allegory is a story or poem or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. So, from this lesson, a lot of hidden themes, moral values are brought in. This story is an allegory which brings out the importance of charity. The happy prince was charitable towards his own people as well as the swallow who sacrificed his enjoyment, everything with his friends, did lots for the happy prince. We learn that love and sacrifice can endure us to God. The prince in the story is no living prince, it is just a statue. He is the statue of a dead prince decorated with gold leaves and precious stones. He is known as the happy prince because there is a smile on his lips. But the smile gradually gives way to tears. The happy prince cannot help crying over the scenes of misery in the houses of the poor. He decides to help them with his gold leaves and costly stones. A little swallow who had flown in from Egypt breaks his flight and takes rest at the feet of the prince. This is the beginning of the scene. This little bird acts as his messenger and he gives away all his wealth. The swallow was on his way back to his homeland when the prince had detained him to help the poor. The prince requested the swallow to help the poor. He still wished to go back, but now it was too late for the swallow to go back. The intense cold killed the swallow. Thus, the little swallow lost his life while helping the poor. His death broke the prince's heart. So the swallow and the prince perished for a noble cause. But their death was not the end, it made them immortal. This is why the angel selected the dead swallow and the lifeless heart of the prince as the noblest things on earth. The story teaches a very useful and true lesson. We learn that God loves those who love their fellow human beings. So we should love one another, should try to help each other when others are in need. Here we go to explore the lesson in details. The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde. The Happy Prince was a beautiful statue. He was covered with gold. He had sapphires for eyes. Sapphires means deep blue precious stone, and ruby. Ruby is a red, deep red precious stone in his sword. So sapphires for his eyes, ruby in his sword. Why did he want to part? Part with all means to give up the gold that he had and his precious stones. Why did he want to give up all the precious things? That's what we are going to see in this lesson. High above the city on a tall column. Column is a solid upright structure or roof. Stood the statue of the Happy Prince. So the Happy Prince was kept on a tall column in the city. He was gilded means covered thinly with gold leaf or paint. So he was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes he had two bright sapphires. Sapphires is a clear deep blue precious stones, and a large red ruby glowed. Glowed on is a sword hilt. Glowed is shine brightly. The red ruby was shining on his sword hilt. Sword hilt is the handle of the sword. This is what the hilt. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. A little bird, named Swallow, flew over the city. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt too. All his friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, remember this. But this little swallow had stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt to join his friends in Egypt. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city where the Happy Prince was. Where shall I put up? Put up means stay. He said, I hope the town has made preparations. The swallow himself talked to himself that okay, let me go and stay or take a shelter in the town. There is something maybe, so let me go and take a rest at night. Then he saw the statue on the tall column. I will put up there. I will stay over there, he cried. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air. If I stay over there, I would get plenty of fresh air. So he descended. He just flew down, and just between the feet of the Happy Prince. So he flew down to the statue of the happy prince, and he stayed below, in between his feet. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself. I have here, by looking at the statue, the statue is made with a fine, thin gold leaf. So, I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself as he looked around and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him. Usually, birds sleep keeping their heads under the wings. As he prepared to sleep, a large drop of water fell on him. What a curious thing! He cried. What is this? Is it raining? There is not a single cloud in the sky. Very strange. There is no cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright. There is bright sky, and yet it is raining. So it is really strange, curious. It's a strange thing. Then another drop fell. What is the use of a statue if it cannot help the rain off? Look at the thinking of the swallow. There is no use of the statue, such a big, beautiful statue, if it doesn't keep the rain away from me. He said, I must look for a good chimney pot. Let me go from this place to a different part, which is called chimney pot. There I can be safe, without getting wet, without getting drenched by the rain. And he determined to fly away. He decided to fly away. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw. Oh, what did he see? What did he see? The eyes of the happy prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. Pity means sympathy, regrettable. So the happy prince's face was so beautiful in the moonlight because it was all gilded with fine and thin gold leaf. So it was shining, that the little swallow was filled with pity. He had sympathy over the happy prince. Who are you? He said. I am the happy prince. The prince replied. The statue replied. Why are you weeping then? Why are you crying then? Asked the swallow. You have quite drenched me. With your tears, you have made me wet. When I was alive, the happy prince says, when I was alive and had a human heart, look at this, human heart, answered the statue, I didn't know what tears were. I did not know what sorrow was. For I lived in the palace where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers means people at the royal court, called me the happy prince, and happy indeed I was. He was indeed happy. It is almost like the life of Buddha, if you know. Buddha, as long as he was in the palace, he didn't know what the condition of the people around, and what is poverty, what is sorrow. Once he got out of the palace, he came to know all those sufferings of the people. The same thing, you can keep that in mind. So I lived, and so I died. When I died, the people, the courtiers, made a beautiful statue and kept me here. And now that I am dead, they have set me up here so high that I can see the ugliness, not beautiful things, ugliness just opposite to beauty, and all the misery of my city, all the pain and suffering, misery of my city. And though my heart is made of lead, means it's made of iron, yet I cannot choose but weep. I cannot do anything except weeping. What is he not solid gold? What? Is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. Means what? With exclamation, the swallow asks, "Is he not solid gold?" He talks to himself. Means he is made of gold and he is not solid, not strong. Said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remarks. So far away, continued the statue, in a low musical voice, far away in a little street, there is a poor house. One of the windows is open, and through it I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn. Worn is damaged, like wrinkled, like poor lady. How a poor lady looks, the same. And she has coarse. She has inferior, coarse, red hands, all prickled. All pricked means pierced by the needle, for she is a seamstress. Seamstress is one who weaves clothes, one who stitches clothes. She is embroidering. She is making some. She is stitching some designs. She is making some designs, flowers, on a satin gown. Satin gown is the satin means cloth worked from silk or